All right, hey guys, Jeff and MACkit,
And I'm Tucker.
and we're here to step into the mid-length board, one of my favorites from KT that came out last year, the Super K. They've made some changes for 2025. We're going to dive into that in a moment. Some of what we're going to talk about, the mid-range boards have kind of are the new, kind of broken into. Every brand is coming out with a midi board.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk a little bit about last year's board. Definitely hit the market, had a really good traction. A lot of people that got on it loved it. And today we're going to just kind of dive into what changes do they make, how does that affect the ride compared to their previous version, and who this might be for. So to break it down, Tucker, let's talk about what are the major changes from 2024 to 2025. We're talking about Super
Almost
K.
everything, honestly. Other than the fact that it's a mid-length board, this is a totally different concept than the 2024. A lot of different application, I think. The dimensions changed, got shorter, narrower, thicker. We got rid of the step bottom. So now this is foil drive compatible with no adaptation, which is cool, but it does make the whole board thicker. Got a bit of a bulbous nose now. You know, this is a different board for sure, and I think, you know, just because you love the board last year doesn't necessarily going to mean you love this board. So it's important to recognize the differences and talk through sizing if you do stick with the Super K, and maybe just realize where it fits in their lineup now versus last year, because it shares the same name, but it's a new animal.
It is a little new animal. Put some context to that. We have the 70 liter in front of us. I spent many of hours on last year's 70 liter, which was 5'10". This one, 5'8". So they shortened it by 3 inches. And then the width last year was 21.5, and now it's 20.5. So actually 2 inches. It was 22.5, 2 inches narrower. 3 inches shorter. It was 5. You're right by 1? I checked on that, but I didn't make that 3 inches shorter, 2 inches narrower. So a lot different in that aspect. You talked a little bit about, I believe they added the volume with this added little bump in the front, no more cutout in the back. I've been able to ride this board. I was super excited about the Super K last year. I'm still super excited about the Super K. So this board, when I've ridden it, 2 different conditions, and a little bit lighter wind, and then in waves yesterday. My first experience on the board, less stable. When I got up on it, from the water getting up to my knees, it just felt a little less stable, felt smaller all around. Even though it's still 70 liters, it just felt a little smaller. I felt it did get up to speed just fine though. Once I got in the right spot on the board, it did plane and get up really quickly. So once up on foil, it did feel like a smaller board because there's just less in the front. It's narrower. It felt it felt small and underfoot. I still felt what I love about the Super K, very well balanced. It's a lightweight board, and you feel like it kind of disappears under you once you're up riding it on foil. So again, my initial experience is that it felt a little less stable. Once up and riding, obviously we've got less real estate. So I felt like my back foot was right up next to the edge. Front foot was right here. I didn't have a lot of wiggle room, which is fine. I mean, if I found my sweet spot, but definitely less real estate. 2 inches is 2 inches. That is a difference. Considerable difference in the padding. And the padding doesn't go all the way to the edge. So it just felt a little smaller underfoot. But I will say, with all that, this is more of an advanced board compared to the same liters of last year. So there's a big difference. Last year's board, Super K, I was very confident with a rider for their second board, looking for a 1-board quiver. They felt stable for their liters because of that added 2 inches, that added length. It definitely felt like a stable 70-liter board. Easier to engage with. I wouldn't necessarily say to get up, but the stability getting up. This one, you have to be a little more dialed on where your feet are. I felt like I was, just not as stable to get up rolling. But once you get this board in the right spot, I believe it actually got up on foil easier. Just a little more work, a little more balance, a little more skill to get it ready to get up and rolling. And once you did, it popped right up.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of points there you made that, you could talk about. Going narrower, yes. As we mentioned, it's also thicker because you're packing the same volume in a narrower, shorter board. So it's got to go somewhere. So it's not just the width, it's also the added thickness. It's going to make it more corky and just a little harder to balance on. So when I look at that, I look at two things. I say, okay, I either want to size up if I want more stability, more board under me, more light windability. And I think that's for sure true on this model. Whereas the Super K last year, you could kind of size down because it was, pretty long, wide board. You could size down in your volume and just plane it up and make up for it. This year, I think if you're looking for light wind performance, you want to size up. That's really, your key, and that's going to be that crossover between a downwind board and a normal wing board if you're sizing up in this. And I would say something like your weight in kilograms plus 15, plus 20
agree,
is a good light wind reference, or a good, ease of use reference. If you want something really gunny and surfy and small, I would say avoid the size of your kilogram and weight kind of thing and go down.
Agree.
And you have to realize you're going to get a narrower board, so you got to manage that. But if you're riding that faster, more aggressive type, you're probably on a pretty small foil to begin with. So I think that's okay. So, in the past, it was like, okay, the 70 liter was kind of that perfect crossover. It did some light wind, it did some high wind, pretty well.
Ease of
this
use.
year, I think it's less of a do-it-all board and more of a light wind specific and, cruiser type rider, or, narrow ripper gunny board for those really, ripping days. But that board is going to be hard to ride. It's not a board that, your beginner, intermediate, progression rider is going to be looking at. So important to look at this year. If you had the 70 this year, I would say, jump up to the 80, maybe even the 90. If you're, looking to size down from that.
Had friends that rode it, you were looking to, because these have been popular boards.
Yeah.
Super K. I think you've stated it very well. You're going to want to size up. And I would say this board is for more skilled rider.
Yeah, for sure. In the same size. I mean, I think
same size.
You can size up and a less skilled rider can ride it.
Yep.
But you're talking about apples and oranges here. You can't go 70 liter and 70 liter. If you do, you're going to be a little disappointed in the stability of the new one. You'll be stoked on the performance of it and the speed of it, but you're going to be a little disappointed in the stability. So I think, our suggestion for anyone that's in that lower intermediate level and wants some light wind performance or do it all one board quiver, size up a little bit. Or if you're in that advanced rider, ripper category, you probably want to size down a little bit just so that you don't have too much volume. You're not getting that corkiness. You want that board to be underwater, a little bit more, lower that center of gravity. And then the board has plenty of efficiency, out of its shape and rocker lines, super efficient, super fast, where you can gain that performance without having so many liters of volume under your feet. So other changes they got this year, obviously, really cool new marbled graphic.
Yeah.
They tell us this makes the board a lot lighter because they don't need as much paint on it. We'll believe them. I think it's true.
Board.
It is lighter. It's lighter than
board.
last year for sure by, what do you think, Jeff? A pound and a half?
It's probably close to that. Maybe just slightly less than that. But,
Yep. And then their new construction, this isn't just a new shape. It's a totally new construction for them out of their factory. This is a dual density blank that's blown all together, which is pretty unique. It's a definite innovation in our industry. The blank is blown into a mold exactly like this shape in 2 stages. So you have your lighter weight foam that really makes the board light. And then you have your outer foam. That's like the last half inch or inch of the outer diameter here. That's a higher density. So you
Gives it
gain
more
that,
strength.
that stiffness, that strength. The repairability is easier on a higher density blank, I would say. And it's also going to suck less water when it gets dinged as compared to just a single density lightweight EPS. So there's a lot of advantages there. There's less waste in production. They're more accurate to the design file that's coming out of KT, and it results in a beautiful board and helps to really reduce the production time on them too. So it keeps the price low, so you end up getting a higher quality board at a lower price. So I think that's really improved and notable this year.
And it fits the performance. You know, when I think of a KT board, it's a high performance board, and I think with that new construction, it's a good marriage there. It brings it together in a very lightweight, high performance board that I believe is going to be a little bit more resistant to maybe surface dings, and because of that outer foam being that high density, a little bit more
it
robust.
doesn't want to flex as much.
No.
So even if there's the same amount of material there, it's not going to crack and flex as much, and that's good for the carbon. It wants to stay in position. If it doesn't, it cracks. So this is more resilient for sure. Based on what we're seeing, it's definitely lighter weight, which is cool. And then the last thing is the I don't know where I was going with this.
Well, I was going to say the track. I was going to say the track seems to be where they need it to be. I usually run mine a little forward of center. On this one, I started right about center, and it seemed fine.
Yep.
I guess that's personal preference. I did have it too far forward the first time I went out. I brought it back to the center. Felt pretty smooth there. So I don't think you have any issues with any brand you put on the bottom of this board.
Yeah, they're long, and they're placed in a good spot, I think, for the balance of the board. Yeah. And there's definitely enough real estate to play with it if you're somebody that likes a little bit more board in front of your feet, or if you want to bring it forward and have a little less board swinging around. I think that works really good. But looking at the rocker line of this board, I think is really special. It's part of why it's so fast. You have a real low entry rocker here with the hull blending into the kind of this double concave here. And then that flattens out through here, and there's a little kick in the tail. It's sort of hard to see maybe on video, but there's just a little kick in the tail there to help it release and rock up, because this does have quite a bit of tail behind the foil box. That'll help, get it up. And there's just this really nice blended curve. You can tell KT is a surf shaper. He pays a ton of attention to those curves and how that rocker line blends through with the concaves. And like you said, it's super fast, super efficient, and that's where you get that on a board like this.
And that's where you put this board in the right spot before you get up on foil, and it does get up to foil. The speed of this board has more speed than the previous version.
Yep.
Less stable, but once you get it there, you pop right up.
Yeah, so I think the application here, what that clicks in my brain is, it's going to work great for light wind on the bigger sizes, of course, but the smaller sizes are going to work really fantastic if you're looking to get smaller foils up on foil more easily. So if you're out there, really wanting to size down your foil, rip waves, this board is going to allow you to get up on foil with a smaller wind.
And that's where that midi range comes in. We're looking at things that are over 5'5". It's a little bit more length in it, so that's where you get that speed, length, and narrower of the board. So who is this for? I think we've kind of touched on it. The midis, when they first came out, we were thinking that all midis could be a one board quiver for everyone. We're seeing some evolution in the midis that are kind of blurring those lines a little bit. I do think, we've said it already, that this board could be for a one board quiver. And if you want it for your one board quiver, size up over your kilograms in weight. At least 10 to 15.
It's
I think
light,
you said, and I would agree with
it
that.
swings through the wind really clean. So going long, there's not really any detriment to your performance, I would say. So sizing up is going to feel really good and easy, and you're going to gain that light wind advantage. Sizing down, I'd say you really want to know what you're doing. You want to pick a really appropriate size. Pay attention to the width, I think, is going to be your biggest thing as a more advanced rider, because you can size down, probably to the 50 liter or something fairly easily if you know what you're doing, but you're going to lose a lot of real estate to stand on. So pay attention to your stance width, pay attention to what foils you're riding and how much leverage you want over those. Outside of that, light wind, do-it-all quiver, and surfy high performance, I think, a lot of stuff in the middle of this range is applicable more towards the fringe sports. So para-winging, this is going to be a fantastic board. 70 to 90 liters for me, just depending on the conditions. In a board like this would be fantastic for that. Foil driving, for me, anywhere, in the lower side all the way up to maybe 70 liters is going to be a really fantastic foil board for foil drive. And as we said, it doesn't have that step deck anymore. You can put a foil drive right on here, no compromise, and go have a rip without having to worry about that step bottom. So I think that was a big part of the decision to get away from the step bottom, was foil driving. But I gotta say, they've done a really nice job with it, even though it is breaking away a little bit from their tradition of the Super K version 1.
I would agree with you there. And I think some of the things you brought up, that it can be more versatile. I would definitely say if you're going to pair a wing with this, like winging, I would size up. I wouldn't, you know, for me, I would not do a 70. I'd do close to a 90 liter board in this style. Now, their previous version, which we still have for sale on our website, you could do a 70 liter on that again. But yeah, I think, you know, again, we've covered a lot of the bases here. I think it's a board that is still hot. I think you just have to understand when they made some changes from previous model that, you know, we can't just, it's not apples to apples, but it is, I really enjoyed my last couple sessions on it. We just got one of these in the shop. We're looking to maybe pull a larger one, which I think we might want to.
Yeah, definitely get the high end and the low end.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot from this one, so I think there's a lot to learn on the bigger sizes, as well as just being selfish and wanting to ride that board in light wind. I think it's going to be fantastic. Should also note, this is the regular carbon version, not the pro carbon version. They do have a more expensive pro carbon version of this that's a little lighter, a little stiffer. You know, I dare say maybe even a little bit more durable. So if you're looking for something like that and you have the budget for that, it could be a great option for you as well.
Right on. So give us a call here, send us an email, chat with us. We'd be happy to help discuss, you know, what's the right size for the new Super K for you. And that way you can definitely maximize your time on the water and enjoy the stoke.
Sounds good, guys. Talk to you later.
The men in black are here. The Mac Kite.
Silver Surfer.